Evening folks, hope you're all well. I'm not just so hot tonight because I was recording a thing earlier on. My voice sort of went a little bit so I've decided to cure it with Guinness and whiskey, which, let's be honest, it's about as good a remedy as we're going to get at the minute. No, I was doing a recording earlier on and it went on a bit longer than I had anticipated, so it's given me a little bit of a croak in my throat, but thankfully we shall persevere on, we shall make do, keep calm and carry on and see how we end up. So hopefully I can make it through this. Now, this review and the next, we're going to go stateside. Now, this is Whistle Pig, 12-year-old, straight rye. It's a little bit of a strange animal actually, because it's a straight rye whiskey. We haven't done a rye whiskey before, I don't think so. And it's finished in 3 different casks. So we shall give that a quick review, see how we got on with it. Now, rye, for anyone who hasn't had any experience of rye whiskies, rye is another cereal. All whiskies are made of cereal. It's a member of the grass family. It's very closely related to wheat and barley, but it's made up slightly different constituent parts, and it gives more of a spicy note. It brings out a bit more light spice, that kind of thing. Now, it's not grown in anywhere near the same volume as some of the other cereals. I wrote down how much of it's produced. There's 12 million metric tons of rye produced, which sounds a lot. I wouldn't, if you sat down and tried to eat 12 million metric tons, it would probably take you a while. But by comparison, there's 1,116 million tons of corn grown. So it's, it's about 1% of what the amount of corn, and rice isn't far behind corn. Well, probably a fair bit behind corn, but it gives you an idea. It's not as popular, but it used to be much more popular to be grown in the States. There used to be an awful lot more rye grown in the States, and certainly a lot more rye whiskey. And there's a bit of a move for some of the new distilleries heading down the rye route. So this is Whistle Pig, and Whistle Pig's got quite a strange little story to it. They have their own distillery now, but this would have been sourced because this is 12 years old. I'll let you see the Whistle Pig label. Okay. So straight rye whiskey, which means it has to have at least 51% rye in it and aged for 2 years. So hand bottled. I'm always a bit strange when a commercial venture says that they're hand bottling. I'm not, and that can sort of mean you have this image of someone with a little jug pouring it in, but you just know that it's like a commercial bottling plant because, just for commercial reasons, it wouldn't make a huge amount of sense to have like Mabel on doing all the bottling with a jug, because she'd be there for quite a period of time. But I do like the bottle. The bottle's got a nice feel to it. It's quite heavy. Nice design on it too. Wee smiley pig. Pigs are quite cute. Actually, I quite like a pig. They've got lots of personality. Yeah. So this is finished in 3 different casks. It's finished in 64% Madeira cask, 25% French Sauternes cask, and 11% port. Now, what they do is they put this in American oak for a decade, for 10 years. Then split it up into the constituent casks and then recombine it again, apparently. That's what they say they do, So that's what they say they do, that's what they do. Okay, we're not casting aspersions on anything that anybody says, but that's what they say they do. I'm going to open it and do it, and then we pour. I'll just wet the cork there because I didn't realise I hadn't wet the cork in this for a period of time. Now, it's got a very deep colour on it. Just let you see. Now on the nose, right away, you're getting a bourbon-esque touch to it on the nose because it's quite sweet. So I'm going to say there's rye and corn and malted barley there. There'll be malted barley because they put that in because it aids the fermentation. But it's quite a sweet nose, quite caramelly, quite rich. The spice isn't necessarily coming through on the nose, but then you wouldn't really expect it to. There's a sweet wine nose to it, quite a sugary sweetness, possibly be a little bit oversweet for my taste. And just towards the end, you're getting the quite nice, rich Madeira, the fortified wines, the deeper fruit. So it's quite sweet, quite artificially sweet in some regards. Then as you move on to it, the nose becomes a better animal. It becomes a bit richer and a bit more tame. The sweetness moves through from being caramel sweet, a little bit of body to it, saccharine sweet nearly, all the way through to being quite rich. So it's got a differing nose on it, where you are getting elements of all the different constituent parts really. Candied sweetness, helping my throat, by the way. Yeah. See, why did I not think of this before? Yeah, coming through really quite nice sweetness, actually delivered quite well. There is a sharpness, there is the spice, that element of rye that gives it a bit of a kick, that is very nice at the start of the finish. As the finish goes on, it becomes that sort of sickly sweetness coming through on it again. Yeah, it's got a good length of finish to it that develops quite well. But it's like the nose. It almost goes through too much of a journey. It starts at one point, which is quite nice, peaks to something not so sure of, tails off and goes, yeah, that's okay. So it's a little disjointed. I sometimes find that with bourbons. I find they're a bit too sweet, and when you get the overly sweet stuff, and it comes through on that, then it becomes quite pleasant, and then can disappear away. Obviously this is rye, this is a different animal, but it's kind of got elements of that American style of whiskies that have that sweetness that people in the US seem to like an awful lot more necessarily than people in Scotland and Ireland would take. I quite like this. It has a bit of a journey, elements of which I'm not overly keen on. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I think it's fabulous, what a journey, blah blah blah. It's not. There's elements to it that I didn't like, but there's elements to it that I do like. And that that in and of itself is sort of how most things go. When you go on holiday, there's bits you like, bits you don't like. You know, you go and you get to see some nice tourist attraction. When you get there, you run into a horrible waitress. You don't remember that bit. That bit's not particularly the bit you want to hang on to. But unfortunately, it was there. So this is like that. It's like a holiday where it rains 2 or 3 days out of the week. You know. And I know for lots of people in the US, raining weather on holiday is actually a good thing. But for people from Ireland, it's not. When we go on holiday, we want sunshine. We don't get that much of it all the time, so we want it when we go away. So it's kind of like a holiday. You get excited to go away. It's not too bad. Rains in the middle, and then there's a couple of nice days at the end. So this is kind of like that. Yeah. Starts off quite fruity, quite pleasantly sweet. Goes to that sweetness is just a bit too beyond my palate. That it's not really what I like. Too sugary, too saccharine sweet. Then goes down, and there's actually slight elements of grass coming through there, and that spiciness coming through there as well. It's quite light, but the sugar's heavy, so it's kind of disjointed a little bit. So it's not balanced particularly well. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of people who like this. Lots of people will like this. It's bottled at 43%, hand bottled, maple working away. This isn't a cheap whiskey, by the way. This is, if you're buying this over here, it's in excess of £100 a bottle. So if I'm marking it, again, a little too heavy on the sweetness for me. At the price range it's at, it's got a journey, so I'm not going to be hard on it, because lots of people will like it. Just personally, there's elements of it that are disjointed. There are very likeable traits to it. I like the fact that they've tried to taken bits of the cask away, finished it in different things, recombined it to give it this. The problem with that is when you put this marks on these, that this is that's what it has to be. And if you've got a production and you're making it up, then it's not giving you too much scope for, well, that cask's not as good as that cask's not as good as that. So you're going to have to be you're within fairly strict boundaries here. So I think this could have been slightly better. It could have maybe a little bit more of the Madeira in it, to be fair, or sorry, the port in it. There's 64% Madeira, 25% from Sauternes, and 11% port. Probably a little bit more port would have went better with it, but that's just my taste. So if I'm giving it a score, we're going to give it, for the price point where it is, we'll hit it down around 5. Yeah, it's got nice elements. Other people will like this more than me, but the bits in the middle of it sort of spoiled it a little bit for me. So yeah, Whistle Pig, I actually look forward to trying some of their other stuff because there are very promising elements to this. So hopefully next time up we'll have a better show from our American cousins. G'day y'all.